My name is CJ Reed. My speech is about the negative effects that aspartame has on our health. So artificial sweeteners, otherwise known as aspartame, has become the most popular sweetener in the USA for food products. And at first it started out for liquids like your sodas. So most of your diet sodas has aspartame in it. But now it's moved to more food products like cereal, you have it in pudding, jello, yogurt, and even gum has aspartame in it. Aspartame is has very negative side effects to our health, and we should understand these because they're pretty harmful. They could be really harmful, and so we need to watch like what ingredients are in our food, and that way we can protect ourselves from that. So, and my first claim is going to be talking about the side effects that it does give you. Second claim is how it affects people and their weight, because it has an effect on obesity. And then in my last claim, I'll talk about how it got through the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, and it wasn't typically the normal process. So I'm sure there's people wondering, like, well, if it's so harmful, why don't people know about it, like, right now? And really, like, the big industries that make aspartame and artificial sweeteners, they're big companies and they make lots of money off of it. So if you want to keep something kind of hush-hush around, like if you have money, pretty much you can do it. So it's a big money-making machine for big companies that do the sweeteners, so that's why it's kind of under wraps. But, from time to time, you get stuff that leaks out. So here's my first claim. Aspartame causes many negative side effects. One of the biggest side effects that happens from aspartame is neurologically, so it's in the brain. And the reason why is because in our bodies we have this molecule, or maybe not molecule, we have something, it's called phenylalanine, and basically it's something that goes into our brain and it helps us like do certain tasks. But when we have aspartame is made up of like 3 main molecules, and one of them is amino acids, and the amino acids carry this phenylalanine into the brain, and by eating more or consuming more aspartame, there's more amino acids, which means more of this can get into the brain, and when there's too much of this in your brain, then it causes damage, and it starts affecting different areas of your body, like your eyes, your ears, and your headaches and stuff. Also, it's made up of methanol, aspartame is, and methanol breaks into formic acid and formaldehyde, which are both toxic and causes nausea, and no one wants nausea. So artificial sweeteners have all these common side effects. You found like all of them, and a lot of people, it's very common for people. And according to MD Lyndon Smith, she says that effects can be short-term, so happen right away, you can feel the effects right away, or long-term. And they're long-term because it takes a while for some of these compounds to digest, and so based on like the buildup, eventually it'll get to you, and you'll feel bad. And also, my mom is actually has a side effect to aspartame whenever she eats it. She has like massive migraines, and I hear about it all the time, so I know a little bit. That's like first-hand experience. My second claim of fact is aspartame has a major role in obesity. It's kind of funny because you see aspartame in diet sodas, and like people think, oh, I'm drinking diet soda, I'm being healthy, which maybe not. But for Dr. Sandra Cabot, a medical doctor over 25 years, she's been giving patients that have been like having weight problems, and she's been trying different methods, to cut down their weight. And she never really thought about the aspartame aspect until like a couple of years ago. And she started asking them to cut down on the aspartame, and she noticed that it did help decrease their weight. And the reason why aspartame does like keep your weight on is because right when you eat artificial sweeteners, it goes right into your liver and passes through the liver filter. And the little liver filter needs to break it down into its compounds, the smaller compounds. And because the 3 things it's made up of are hard to break down, it takes more energy for the liver to break it down. And because all that energy is being used trying to break down the aspartame, then there's not as much energy to burn the fat and to keep your metabolism up. So it has a effect right to obesity, keeps your fat there, and that's bad. There's a study that the University of Texas Health Center did, and they compared a regular soft drink drinker with a regular diet soft drink drinker. And pretty much for someone who drank half a can of normal soda, their percent chance of becoming overweight or obese was 30. And then when they related it to someone who drank half a can of diet soda, the percentage jumped to 37.5, so a 7.5 increase. And then for a can to 2 cans a day for a regular, it's a 32% chance of being obese. And then for a diet soft drinker who drinks 1 to 2 cans, it jumps to 54%. So there's a big jump between a normal soda and a diet soda. And my last kind of fact deals with the FDA and how it got through the Food and Drug Administration. It wasn't really the normal process. What happened was the scientist accidentally found aspartame when he was trying to find a drug for anti-ulcer. And then we noticed, like, he made this thing, it's 180% sweeter than sugar. He was like, oh, I want to use this in like food products, get some money out of it. And so he tried to pass it through the FDA, and the FDA had troubles like passing it because people were finding problems with it, all the side effects. So it stopped midway. It didn't really get through all the way. And they're really trying to get it through because these people want to make money off of it. And it actually went all the way up to President Reagan. President Reagan had a friend who really wanted to get this through the FDA because he knew he could get money out of it. So he's been talking to the president about it, and eventually the president went and fired the commissioner of one of the FDA's positions who was holding it up. And once he fired that guy, then his friend who wanted this artificial sweetener to get through came in and passed it. So it wasn't traditionally the way it goes through the FDA. It kind of snuck in there. And based on this evidence that I've told you tonight, you can see the negative side effects that aspartame has. And I think we should be careful about what we eat because it could be harmful. Thank you for listening to me.
All right, you need a clear statement of the proposition at the beginning of the speech. I think you've got one buried in that introduction, but it needs to be brought up and identified as the main proposition. The secondary points are previewed, but they're not phrased as claims. They're just statements, and at most they become claims after you've talked about them. So you want those to be declarative sentences from the beginning of the argument also. I didn't hear any evidence about this big companies can get whatever the heck they want stuff. And that's a presupposition that you go into the speech with at the beginning, and then it turns out to be the second part of your third point, and you don't give us any source citation on any of that information. It sounds like an apocryphal story, but we don't have any way of tracking it down or telling if it's coming from somebody who has insight on this, knowledge of this, was it reported someplace. We don't get any of that data. On the first point, you've got a couple of examples that you're using, and you've got this long description of the brain issues. We need some source citation on the brain issues. It sounds like it's mostly a theory. On the second point, on the dieters, we do get a statistic that gives us a relationship there from the University of Texas study, but what we don't get is enough explanation of that study to tell how accurate it is. Also, I don't think you gave us a time citation on that study, and we're talking about an approval process that goes back to the Reagan administration. Well, let me see. Reagan stopped being president in 1988, so that's more than 22 years ago. We ought to have some recent studies that show this kind of stuff. If this is a study that came from that time period when the FDA was in dispute about it, then that's old information, and we should certainly have a lot more information now. All right, and then I already told you what I thought. The third point's just, it's a lot of assertion on this point, and you need to have the data there. I thought you did a nice job presenting to the audience, maybe a little editing so that we get in that 6 minutes, but that's okay.